Welcome to the 17th Forum of the South Sudan Women Intellectuals Group. Today, our topic is South Sudan post-secondary school education, challenges and opportunities. And today I'm going to be the moderator. My name is Dora Pony Loro, and joined with me are six actually, phenomenal women that will give us their insights into how post-secondary school education is in South Sudan and in other perspectives as well. We will be happy if you, the audience, will join us in with your comments, questions, and any other points that you want us to take up with the panel. Post-secondary education, also known as tertiary education, is the education level that follows the successful completion of secondary education, often referred to as high school. Post-secondary education includes universities and colleges, as well as trade and vocational schools. Under South Sudan's current system, there are two general educational tracks. The formal tracks includes 8 years of primary school education, beginning at 6 years of age, followed by 4 years of secondary education. Then post-secondary training of 4 years of tertiary education. The Ministry for Higher Education, Science and Technology was established by President Decree number 62 of the 21st June 2010. Higher education in South Sudan refers to the education offered at post-secondary level. Higher education institutions are institutions where students are required not only to acquire knowledge, but also contribute effectively in producing it, as well as developing their critical faculties. There are 8 government-sponsored universities in South Sudan. 5 are currently operational, while 3 are still at the project level. There are over 35 private tertiary institutions operating in South Sudan. There are no laws governing private institutions. There are also other tertiary institutions that are currently run by other line ministries. But there are future plans to bring all post-secondary education under the supervision of the ministry. The most important challenge to higher education in South Sudan is the vicious cycle of insecurity in both the periphery and the center of the country. 4 of the 5 public universities are located in states prone to be attacked, either by the rebels fighting the government or by the local communities in conflict with each other. As a result, many highly skilled foreign academics have left the universities and returned to their countries or sought jobs with international non-governmental organizations. Because of insecurity and interruptions, many students have left the country to get enrolled in neighboring countries, such as Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, or Sudan. Some students and staff, traumatized by the murderous attacks, are too scared to return to the campus and thus interrupt their studies or drop out of school altogether. However, the recent peace deal signed in Juba might help overcome this fear of insecurity. We hope so. Higher education plays quite an important role in the nation's sustainable social, political, and economic development. The Continental Education Strategy for Africa 16 to 25 calls for a paradigm shift towards transformative education and training systems to meet the knowledge competencies, skills, research, innovation, and creativity required to nurture African core values and promote sustainable development. So I'll introduce our panel, who will give us insight into post-education in South Sudan. I'll start with our able Professor Julia Dwani. She's currently a professor of educational leadership and Policy Studies, and a former Vice Chancellor of Dr. Garang Memorial University of Science and Technology. She is the CEO and founder of Gender Equity and Women Leadership Program, an organization that empowers women in all fields of studies in South Sudan. She was formerly the Undersecretary in the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs and a chairperson of Recruitment and Selection Board in Ministry of Labor, Public Service and Human Resource Development in the government of South Sudan. She was a member of South Sudan National Vision 2014. She was a research associate at Vincent and Lynn Ostrom Workshop in Political Theory and Policy Analysis at Indiana University, United States. She was a Fulbright scholar at Makerere University, Kampala. Julia taught in primary and secondary schools, both in Sudan and the United States. Dr. Dwani wrote extensively on social justice and gender issues, and she's very passionate about women education and bringing in more South Sudanese women into political leadership roles and a peace. And she's also a peace activist. Dr. Dwani is a winner of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Building Bridges Award for dedication to service and outstanding leadership, issued by Indiana University in 2005. And she also was awarded the Refugee Women Leadership Award for valuable contribution to refugees in the United States. Women Commission for Refugees in 2019 awarded her that prize. She authored 2 books entitled Making Peace and Nurturing Life, a memoir of an African woman about a journey of struggle and hope. And she co-authored with her husband the Sudan People's Liberation Movement Army book, A Systemic Problem for People of South Sudan. You are very welcome, Professor Julia. The next person I'll introduce in our panel is Dr. Kuyang Harriet, who recently completed her doctoral degree at the Institute for Peace, Development and Security Studies, University of Juba. Kuyang teaches international law and international human rights at the postgraduate level at the University of Juba, and she also teaches women and law and child law at the college at the same University of Juba. Kuyang is an independent consultant working on democratic governance, access to justice, and the rule of law with the United Nations and international organizations, including academic institutions. Prior to becoming an academic and consultant, Kuyang served with the UNDP in the capacities of rule of law analyst, program analyst for the rule of law cluster and access to justice specialist in the Sudan, South Sudan, and Timor-Leste. Kuyang received her first degree from the Faculty of Law, Makerere University, and her Master's of Law from Ohio Northern University in the United States. Kuyang has published in the area of international humanitarian law, customary and transitional justice, and knowledge production, and on gender issues as well. You're welcome, Kuyang. Our next panelist is Ms. Adeng Lig. Adeng is the founder of Opportunities for South Sudanese Initiative, currently working with the African Union Commission, where she has been working for 3 years. She previously advocated for women's rights in Pibor, Juba, and Wau. She also advocated for youth and peacekeeping, advocate with the Horn of Africa Leadership and Learning for Action. She's also a member of the Mandela Institute for Peace for Development Studies and former human rights defender, trained by the Frontline Defender. You're welcome, Josephine. Adeng Lig. Our next is Josephine Pony. Josephine Pony is a 4th-year law student at the Juba University. She started her basic education in Sacred Heart Primary School, then moved on to St. Joseph and to Kumboni Secondary School, where she actively engaged herself and participated in competitions on academic performances between girls and boys, like debates and other school activities. Josephine joined the University of Juba School of Law in 2015. She's in a class of more than 200 students, among which only 20 are female. Despite the fact that she's among the few women or girls in the class, that didn't stop her or distract her focus on becoming the lawyer in the future that she wants. She was focused and she continued as an equal part with the male students. Her passion led to her participation in 2019 in the Students Exchange Program, land registration organized by ELAN. And that same year, she also attended internal moot court competition in international humanitarian law between the University of Juba and Stafford University. And she also participated in the 19 All-Africa competition in international humanitarian law. Welcome, Josephine Pony. Our fifth panelist is Mary Natesio, a 20-year-old second-year university student pursuing her bachelor degrees in economics and management at the Ibn Tufayl University of Morocco. She has been a leader at school, and during this time, she developed the passion to serve others, to be a human rights activist, fighting especially for women's rights, and to see that her nation, South Sudan, become a developed nation in all aspects. Welcome, Naifsa. Welcome so much, Mary. I don't see Mary here, I think because of the technical problem she's experiencing, she's dropped out, but she will join us shortly. Thank you so much. Our last panelist is Evelyn. Evelyn is the founding academic registrar of Clark University, International University, from 2007 to today's date. Prior to that, she worked in Uganda Martyrs University and held positions from administration to senior assistant registrar. Evelyn is a highly skilled, motivated, enthusiastic, and committed individual with over 20 years experience in higher education, especially with startups, governance, management, and build-ups. Thank you, Evelyn. You're welcome. Yeah. We'll proceed to our questions. And the first one I will want to ask is our professor, Dr. Dweni. Higher education in South Sudan since independence was the domain of the government. The CPA under Schedule B of ICC 2005 provides for concurrent powers in the management of higher education institutions in Sudan. Concurrent powers meant in practice that the government of South Sudan shared obligations. With the independence of South Sudan of 19th July 2011, the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology has assumed fully responsibility over all higher institutions of learning in South Sudan. And now, Professor, what is the higher education in South Sudan? And what kind of policies do we have available to guide and regulate post-secondary education in South Sudan? Please, would you highlight on that? You can unmute yourself, please.
Thank you very much, Dora. And as you have seen, it is still morning for us. Even my voice has not yet get up. And it's good to see all these young ladies right here discussing education. I'm really thrilled. And I think I said maybe some of us who have been in the lead are seeing the light in the tunnel, that those who are coming after us will be able to pick up maybe where we left it. Having said that, you asked what is higher education in South Sudan and what policies guide it. I will go back a little to define in the first place what is education. And then from there we will go to higher education. According to UNESCO, education is to organize and sustain communication designed to bring about learning. So what is communication? Communication is a relationship between the two people, the one who speaks and the one who observes the information, which is that part bringing the learning. And learning is once you have learned the information, somebody communicate to you, then you change your behavior, you get the knowledge, you get the understanding, then you get the skills, and then the capacity, which will help you to change yourself. So that is the summary of education. Communication between the two people, which turn to bring in learning. What is higher education? According to scholars and to Webster Dictionary, higher education is defined as where people prepare professionals. It's a center where you prepare professionals. Those who could acquire skills in different fields, in hard sciences and social sciences, and humanities. And this system is considered as a production of knowledge, is a center for production of knowledge. That is the definition of higher education. And once that knowledge is produced, it is refined and then disseminated so that people can benefit from it. That's what the university is all about. And then that knowledge, when it is given, it changed the behavior, it changed the way people do things, it resolved problems like problems we have in South Sudan. That's what higher education is all about. What are the policies that guide higher education in South Sudan? If you look at our history, we actually inherited higher education from the North. And the North, inherited higher education from the British. So you can see, the sequence of our development of our higher education in South Sudan. It started in 1973 when, I think 73, 74, when the regional government, after the Addis Ababa agreement, see that we need skills and we need professionals in South Sudan. That was the birth of Juba University. Started with two colleges, one of them which is College of Adult Education. A College of Adult Education was to bring in already working professionals in the government so that they can upgrade their skills. And then the other colleges were later developed. College of Medicine was the second one, which later to be able to help so that South Sudan can have doctors. And then from there, other colleges developed after it. So that's how our higher education developed. There are two systems of higher education. One is the public system. That public system, it is combining two ways. One, it is supported fully by the government. And that is the system we have in South Sudan. Most of the income or resources that come to run the university come from the government. And then there is a private sector. The private sector of higher education is the one which is self-sustained and being run privately by the private institutions. Our higher education, basically, the 5 universities you have told us, and the 3 which are become technical colleges are all public institutions. They all relied on the government support, and that is a challenge to higher education because the autonomy of the institutions is kind of shaky, because if you get your full funding from the government, then you have to adhere with the policies of the government. And that's where I come in with the policies. There is policy, higher education policy 2012, which was put out to govern the 5 universities and the 3 technical colleges. There is also the Constitution of South Sudan, the interim constitution, which also, I don't remember the article, which also give the mandate to govern the higher education in South Sudan. So those are two policies that govern policies in South Sudan. I think I will leave it from there, and if there is more later we can add, but just briefly, that's how we, this is what governs us in higher education in South Sudan.
Thank you so much, Professor Julia, for your insight. It's really great to hear about the policies that are in place. And I'll just ask you a follow-up question to see if these policies are really working. Like, would you take us through the situation of the post-secondary school education based on your background, based on your experiences, and then how these policies are being put to action?
Yeah, policy is a policy. Once it is put out, it has to be followed by the institutions. As I have said before, most of the 5 plus the 3 technical colleges are governed by the policy of the government, and because they rely resources on the government, they are not free to do what they want to do. So they have to follow the policy of the government. Whether these policies are working or not working, that is a different issue because of the environment where we are in. Conditions sometimes deter these policies to be followed accurately. Like the Ministry of Higher Education is the one that top and supervise the universities. I would say supervise the universities because we are not that independent. The supervision of the ministry is to see that the universities follow the policies that has been laid out by the government. Even these private universities, there is also an article which governs them, which nobody can just come in and you open the university without really being given a certification by the Ministry of Higher Education after they have, seen that you are able to provide that kind of services to South Sudan. So there is a department of private universities in the Ministry of Higher Education where those who want to establish a universities has to follow through that department and see the requirements that are needed for you to open a university. So those policies are there. And the challenge, human beings are human. They always take shortcuts here and there. That's why I heard there was about how many private universities in South Sudan, whether those private universities are accredited or have been given certificate to function in South Sudan. That is a different thing. But there is policies that govern both private and public universities in South Sudan.
Thank you so much. It's very important to have these policies in place. And as you mentioned, it's one thing having the policies, the other thing is making them practical because of the situation that we are in. We have our student from the University of Juba, Josephine Pony. We want to hear from her how she experiences being a student at the University of Juba. Josephine, would you tell us kindly about your typical learning process in the University of Juba, like the lectures, the student-teacher collaboration, the learning environment, and how it is to be a student at the University of Juba, in one of the public universities, and also run by the policies that Professor Julia has just mentioned?
Yes, as a student in the University of Juba, I would like to brief you about learning process. Like lecturers are good in teaching process and they cooperate with the students. Also, they are friendly in study materials. Some lecturers understand the situations facing the student, especially challenges of lack of books in the library, also access to internet. Some of the lecturers are trying their level best to provide materials for the students in order for them to go through it and understand, and also to advise the student not only to rely on the material being given to them, but also to try their best to search some of information from internet. Secondly, our learning process also based on representations making by the student, especially the student leader, whereby all the students guiding together and cooperate, they make a material for a study for themselves. The only leader of the group will make representations on that materials. Then after, the lecturer will come and make brief about it and make some comments on what is student being asked, like questions or any view given by the students. Thirdly, I will like to talk about our accommodations. Surely our accommodation is unfair. There is a lot of difficulty the students are getting, like lack of drinking water, food, healthcare facility, like medicine. There is not enough medicine at the school hospital, and also insufficient of latrines or toilets that force most of the students to go out of the campus searching for relief for natural cold, especially ladies going out of the campus searching for place. Fourthly, the environment in the university is good, but the only challenges facing the students, there is no place for sitting, like chairs, desks, is not enough. And also sometimes challenges facing the student inside the lecture hall, like there is no enough space for lectures. Also, there is lack of perceptive power operations in lectures hall. That's all I have to tell you.
Thank you, Josephine. You've lined up a series of challenges students face, and there are quite many. And as Professor Julia has been saying, that the higher education is actually a center of knowledge. And then we can all imagine how difficult it can be to acquire that knowledge when you have so many challenges around you. Could you please, again, Josephine, before you mute in, tell us how After mentioning all the challenges, how do you manage to continue learning with lack of these basic requirements, including, let's say, for example, research, learning facilities, like the library, you have mentioned some, access to the internet and electricity, which is actually so important to access the information that you need to learn further.
Yes. Through lack of basic requirement like research, library, access to internet, sometimes on subject that we face a lot of difficulty in getting information, we sometimes try our best to visit some legal authorities. Like in case of criminal law, we sometimes try our effort to go to legal administrations like public prosecution attorney so that we can get some information. Also, sometimes we go to our seniors lawyers so that we can get, if they have books, we take books from them and we go through it. After them, we give to them back. And also sometimes we try to manage by search internet outside, although it is expensive. Thirdly, mostly we base our study on group, where everyone searching some informations. Then we came together as a group, we sit together, then we get it from each one, then we collect it, we make it a notes for ourselves. This is how we manage. Until now, we are still managing it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It is challenging to be a student when you don't have the basic necessities to make you access the knowledge and skills that you need from the university. But as you mentioned, you are able to also reach out to with other students, and the professors are able to get you with this information that is needed and the lectures. Dr. Kuyang will highlight a bit more on that later. So thank you so much, Josephine. I'll move on to Mr. Deng. Mr. Deng will highlight a little bit on the African Union education and scholarship programs. The mission statement of the African Union on education states that to contribute towards revitalized, quality, relevant, and harmonized education systems responsive to the needs of Africa, taking into account Africa's aspiration and capacity in terms of human and material resources. Systems that produce Africans with appropriate attitudes, values, knowledge, skills to be able to facilitate attainment of the African Union vision. Systems that can generate applied and new knowledge and contribute towards its harnessing for meeting Africa's challenges, as well as placing Africa firmly within the core of the global knowledge economy. And now, Mr. Deng, what policies do African Union have for post-secondary education? What is that policy, especially for women?
Thank you, Dora. Thank you, everyone. I would like to start with a quote saying that education, particularly higher education, will take Africa into the mainstream of globalization. That was mentioned by John Kufuor. So the African Union consists of 55 member states. And by that, I would like to say that the AU mission statement for education can be only implemented through the 55 nations. And every nation has to contribute to its own national progress, and the national and the, for example, the statements or the policies should be implemented at the national level, then continental level, it will be a great success. So I would like to say that the AU mission statement has said that it has been revitalized quality, relevant, and harmonized education systems. We in Africa, we realize that we have education system, some of at the current time is somehow weak, and at some nations has to leave their own nation. Some people has to leave their own nation and go to other nations to access education, or we have to access other scholarships or education to go for other education system in the Western countries. So the AU and the member state of the 55 nation had said that had put together a continental education strategy, which is CISA, and that continental education strategy has been put in for 10 years, and this is an adoption is the ministers have adopted the continental education strategy for the agenda AU Agenda 2063, which is in line with the Global Education 2030 program. So the CISA goes for 10 years from 2016 to 2025. It was done in the what is it called, the summits, and that the CISA was done so that it will shift the paradigm towards transformative education and training system, so that it will meet the knowledge, competencies, and skills, and also the research, innovation, and creativity required to nurture African core values and promote sustainable development that we would like to see in Africa. So I would like to say that the objective and the objective of the policies is to revitalize the teaching professional, which will ensure the quality and relevance at all levels. So the education cannot be education if there is no certain qualities that can be followed at all levels. And then the second one is to expand access to quality education, which is by building, rehabilitating, and which is preserving education, which is infrastructure, and developing policies that may ensure a permanent and healthy and conducive learning environment in all subsectors. And also they have gone ahead and said that it should also harness the capacity of ICT to improve access, which in terms of ICT is not only something that can say that it should belong to one side of gender, which is men. It should also involve the whole gender, like women and men equally. So to improve access and quality and management of education and training systems, like as we can see now during the COVID-19, as we are in COVID-19 now, we will need access to the IT knowledge and ICT, all the information that can help us improve the education and training systems during this period specifically, because it's seriously challenging. So, and also it says that it should ensure acquisition of requisite knowledge and skills, as well as improve completion rates at all levels. And then the process should be they should accelerate the process, leading to gender parity and equity as well. So, and I would like to say that in this strategy, they have emphasized on strengthening the science and maths curriculum, and disseminate scientific knowledge and the culture of science in the African society, in which we can see there's different scholarship that they offer for science and maths. And usually it is the scholarship comes like almost like every year, and they ask women, they encourage women to apply for it. And also they want to expand the technical, the vocational and technical experience and also trainings, in order for people to have it in both secondary level and the high level and the university level, so that there should be a linkage between the world of work and education and training systems. So this is all I can say about the strategy briefly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adeng. I think that's a very good introduction into our next question, where it states that if the African Union has any gender policy in regards to, if you can kindly give us the components of the policy, if there's any in regards to gender. I think you mentioned specific one policies that are in place. So if you could please highlight that, then would tell us about the situation in South Sudan?
Yes, the gender policy is the most important thing at the AU currently, and because of the rising number of the sexual harassment and harassment, especially in the offices, and abuses in the offices. And I would like to point out some pillars that the AU has put, during the Madame Zuma, Her Excellency Madame Zuma, the former chairperson, which she emphasized the issue of sexual harassment and gender equality as well. Because she's the one who has launched the Agenda 2063, and she has emphasized that one in the Agenda 2063. She even quoted that, saying that if we don't put women in history books, they get edited out of history. So she was really, mobilizing for women's rights and also a women equality. So I would like to put on some pillars that will tell you what the AU is doing for gender. So pillar one, they want to focus on maximizing opportunities, outcomes, and ETech dividends, and also it recognizing among others that for women to be economically empowered and to be able to effectively contribute to sustainable development, they must have access to quality education, which is a very important thing. That's why we are talking about the higher education. And then the pillar two focuses on dignity, security, and resilience, and recognizes that the right of women and girls to dignity, security, and bodily psychological integrity are often compromised. Especially, we can see it currently at the current situation now. For example, in South Sudan, there's a lot of issues to do with rape. There's a lot of issues to do with sexual harassment all over places, and even in public places, we can see it as well. So that's why they say it's important also to put it as also part of the curriculum to let people learn about, also the sexual harassment and also the gender equality and all. So I would like to speak also on pillar 3, which highlights the need of effective laws, policies, and institutions. So there's different laws and policies and institutions that should be put in place in different member states in Africa. So also the AU Women, Gender and Development Directorate had also emphasized on that thing. That's why they always bring the ministers from the 55 nations together to meet, and they have to to adopt the policies and the things that are in place, the laws in place, so that they will make a commitment of fighting against any gender discrimination or any gender issues in the nation. So those pillars can show you briefly of what the African Union is trying to do. That's why in the African Union there is a Women, Peace and Security envoy, which is head by Madame Diop, and she's tirelessly working on these issues, on how to bring these issues of gender-based violence, and also on how to encourage women to be in power all over, Africa. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Aden. Yeah. We'll move on to Kuyang, who will also highlight on the gender issues in the University of Juba, and from her also research. South Sudan, the world's newest nation, as we say, and has a total of 6 universities, as Professor Julia said. 5 of these are public, while others are private institutions. The top 3 university administrators are appointed by the president of the country. Each university has a vice chancellor and 2 deputies for academic affairs and for the administration and finance. Only one of the 5 universities' vice chancellor is a woman. At the time of writing, at the time of your saying now, the total number of students in all universities is estimated between 25,000 to 30,000. And how many of these are girls? We don't know. And we can imagine there are very few. Dr. Kuyang, you are working on a research illuminating gender equality issues at the moment. What are your experiences as a female academic working in a male-dominated space? And what are the experiences and attitudes that you have experienced yourself as an academic, and also what your female students have experienced? If you could just highlight on that, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Dora, and also for putting a wonderful panel today. You know, I think that this topic is extremely timely, and to speak about gender disparities at the higher, institutions of learning provides a platform where we are not just looking at the issues in private spaces, because as female academics, we understand that the numbers are extremely unequal. There's really few females. We're just a handful. And so as academics across the globe, not just within the University of Juba and the other universities in South Sudan, but with other colleagues from Europe, from America, we always sat in private spaces and we would, share experiences. And strangely, it is actually very similar experiences, regardless of the races and all of that. At the end of the day, there are certain specific, experiences that are shared by female academics. And I was part of the London School of Economics conflict research program, which Professor Julia is also a part of. And it was agreed that we do a research, on a special issue on education. And I quickly picked this particular issue because for me, it is really, really important that we're not just, talking about disparities in the academia, gender inequality issues in those private spaces, but bring it as a written piece. And first of all, just at the top of my head, you realize that there is even no gender equality policy at the University of Juba, for instance, and I would think that it is the same in other universities. So as much as the numbers are unequal, there's no policy to bring in, more girls and even more female academics. So you can imagine there are some informal arrangements, informal situations where there are waivers created for female academics. For instance, the requirement for you to become an academic is that you should have a master's degree. So if a female academic has enrolled into a master's program and they have not completed the master's degree, they will be allowed. But those are very informal waivers. And also, just responding to your question on attitudes, as academics, it is quite interesting that at the time that I was hired at the University of Juba in 2013, I noticed that they wanted me to teach women on the law and child law courses, as a lawyer that is well grounded in legal field. The academia felt, oh, she can teach these courses. These are the courses that she needs to be teaching, and that's part of the stereotypical nature of the institutions, and these are our own experiences. So when I was doing this particular research, which is conflict culture and gender inequalities, eliminating the discussions at the University of Juba, when I spoke with my colleagues, they said it's because, men are very ashamed to teach women on the law course. You can imagine, the male lecturers actually think that women and the law course or a child law course is a women thing. They actually think that it doesn't fall within the domain of the procedural and substantive law. So you can just imagine some of these things that were in the private space, but my research brings it, something scientific and written. And I focus my literature review on African situations because our situation is a little bit different, and this is influenced by patriarchy, patriarchal stereotypes, and all of that. With regards to students and female lecturers, to be honest with you, there is such the line between how a female academic is perceived and a female student is very thin. You will agree with me that the academia is a very rigorous place. It requires you to sometimes even adopt very masculine traits. So if you go into the classroom and you are not presenting yourself with very strong personality, masculine traits, you're going to have a problem with the students because they're not going to respect you. If you come off as somebody who is shy, somebody who cannot speak so loudly, you know, they will quickly have issues with you. And my research illuminates that. For students, it's very balanced. They kind of think that they're very sympathetic to female students because there are very few, less than 10 sometimes in a class, especially the fourth year classes and the final classes. But they also have a mindset that female students are lazy. For instance, a law course is very rigorous and the female cannot match up to the requirements, and sometimes they tend to drop off. And as I conclude, one thing that caught my attention that we always talk outside, all of us females, not just in the academia, outside in our private spaces, is that the non-academic staff are the most biased against us. The tea ladies, the cleaning ladies. It was so interesting that they were not even cleaning the female staff officers, or not, giving them tea, because the understanding is that you're a woman like me, go make your tea, go clean your office. So I just leave it at that for now. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Koyang. It's such an important issue you're taking up, because we need policies in place to be able to actually, if you are to fight against gender stereotypes and be able to at least reduce the disparities in gender. So we will be able to do it through laws, through formal laws, not informal ones. So thank you so much. And I hope your research will be of great help into forming those policies later on. I'll move further to Evelyn. Evelyn will tell us about functions of the university. We have heard about the importance of quality education, and to have a quality education, you need to have policies in place. And before a university opens, just as Professor told us, they have to go through certain criteria. Evelyn has 22 years experience in education, especially from private universities, with emphasis on setting up programs and administrative structure. As a registrar, that's an official in an academic institution consisting of a college or university or secondary education, post-secondary education. You handle student records, and you are responsible for maintaining the integrity of students' personal information and academic records. And your passion lies in student support and making sure they complete their courses in time. Now, what are the typical characteristics, we would say, for a higher level education in East Africa? Just briefly, we have had it been mentioned already. And how does a college qualify to become a full university? We have heard already that we have a number of private universities in South Sudan, but would you highlight on how does a college or university qualify to become a higher learning institution? Thank you.
Thank you, Dora, and all the panelists. Now, like the professor says, there are policies and systems in place. Once you have the idea of, I want to start a university, you don't just go to a building and start. You have to think about, what programs am I going to run? You must get the qualified staff. You must get the niche in place. So what happens is, you have like in Uganda, we have the National Council for Higher Education. You must apply to start a university. You are given what we call the provisional license, just for them to understand whether you actually able to set up what a university is. So you have to look at your staffing. And the criteria is very, very stringent, because you have to have a number of PhDs, a number of master's degrees, and probably the teaching assistants that are coming in. And that takes a period of about 5 years in Uganda. So between the time that you apply, you're given the provisional license, for you to become a fully fledged university is 5 years and above. You must have the buildings in place with particular specifications, because you have seen that sometimes schools start up in what we call people's homes. But in Uganda, the structures are clear, They have specifications for even what a classroom should look like. What size should a library be? How many lecturers do you need for a particular program to be? And we also have the professional council. I am running programs in health, so I have the Nursing Council in Uganda, I have the Allied Council in Uganda, you have the Law Society, so you have to go to the different professional councils to be able to come and verify. They don't just verify the paperwork. They must come physically and see, what do you have in place? Does it meet the basic criteria? So within these 5 years, you are allowed to start with paperwork and move on. So after 5 years, you apply for now a license, a full license. And within this time, they are assessing your graduates as well. Are they people that are, what do we call them in society? What have they done? What impact do they have? You're supposed to be doing annual reports, tracer studies of the students, what they are doing, but basically they must see improvement and development. So it's an all-round process that takes, I am now running a university for 12 years, but I'm at the level of applying for a charter. Because when you get a charter, then you're fully licensed and you're able to operate, but the regulating bodies are free to come and check on you every other time. And you must give them a proper annual report. We have the councils in place. You must have a university council, you must have a university senate. So all these structures qualify for you to actually have a university. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, as we all hear, it's a demanding process. But if all is in place, then you can qualify for university. And I think it's so important because, again, it is a center where knowledge is gained, where we, the students, come out from there with knowledge that is important for the society. So it has to be, the criteria has to be filled the right way. So thank you so much, Evelyn. I'll proceed with you to the next question in regards to if there are any specific university policies that support women or encouraging them to further education or further studies. And if they are, what are they? And if are these policies being really effective and implemented?
Thank you. I would say Uganda as a country in the last almost how many years had policies where for the government universities, you are every student that is coming in, a female student is given extra points, 2 extra points, because for any course, there are cutoff points that a student must have attained this grade to join this particular program. I think Dr. Kuyang, who was in Makerere, might remember that, but that is mainly in the public universities. Now, in private universities, we do not have a set policy for women, to empower women, because we've realized that over the years, let me use an example of Uganda, that women have come up on their own. We are now saying that actually having a policy that only favors women is sort of like discriminatory in kind, because
See, Evelyn is experiencing some technical problems. I think we'll just proceed with Kuyang, and then we'll get her in when she logs in again. Kuyang, as a lecturer at the University of Juba, a former PhD student, and having collaborated with different international universities, how would you say the South Sudanese or South Sudan stands in regard to challenges and opportunities of partnering with international universities? Yeah.
Thank you. You know, there's a lot of interest from so many universities, you know, who would want to partner with University of Juba, the University of John Garang, all of these public universities. And I think that's a very good thing, because there's also the understanding that this is a new state, and the universities are still taking their baby steps. Many, you know, it was a different system of education, for instance. And when I should give an example of the College of Law, for instance, where I have taught for all this time. In the past, when we were Sudan, we had the civil law system, and when we, attained our own state, we had to adopt another new system in line with the legal system of the country. So South Sudan universities, especially the colleges of law, adopted a common law system, and you just don't adopt a system and that's it. There's a lot of capacity that is required to run that kind of system, to train the students. So we have had so many partnerships, and I'm sure Professor Julia can also perhaps even agree with me that there's a lot of interest. We have so many partnerships with other universities across the world and other academic institutions that are very interested in supporting us. Having listened to the challenges of Josephine, I am completely appalled by just how much they have to deal with. And I think it is now the duty of the universities to take these partnerships, forward, to build the capacities of the universities, to build the names of the universities, and to build the reputations of the universities. We have a lot of international universities across the globe that are very interested. Now we have the COVID-19, for instance, and we have a lot of partners who would want to support the universities with internet so that we can adopt the new norm, which is online meetings with Zoom and all the other resources that are available. In terms of the library, in terms of academic resources, we're still way back compared to the other universities. Even I went to Makerere University and I thought that it was excellent until I went to the United States, and everything is right in your room, the internet. So we have those disparities, and I think it's a step at a time approach, and it is envisaged that we will get there. The university, to be honest with you, from 10 years ago to now, I think we've made commendable progress. And I think it goes to all the leadership of the universities and also higher education to be able to ensure that our universities are at a level where they can compete with international standards.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. Can you mute, please, Piam? Thank you. Yeah. Just a follow-up question to what you have just said. There are so many challenges students face, and one other challenge is the language of instruction, the language that is being used, if it is Arabic or English. So we know that English is the language of instruction now in the higher education institutions in South Sudan. Would you just describe the quality of education in our universities and how students are prepared? Are they really prepared? Are they properly prepared for higher education after their secondary schooling, given that English is the language of instruction? Is their English proficient enough to take higher education at the university level when they leave secondary school?
Really, thank you, Dora, for that question. And I think that as an academic, I remember writing an article about the formative stages of common law in South Sudan. And one of the things I raised was the issue of how the language change was managed, from Arabic or Arabic and English to completely English. We have so many of the students that came from Khartoum that received their early training in Arabic language. And when we became a new nation, we completely shelved Arabic and adopted English in all of the institutions of learning. And there's such a huge challenge. You can imagine that a student, for instance, at the College of Law and the Institute for Peace, you need to be extremely proficient in the English language to be able to understand what is being taught to you in the faculty of law. If you don't, and if your English competency levels are not to the highest standards, how are you even going to follow the lectures? How are you going to be able to interpret the laws? It is such a huge challenge. And this current research that I talked about, I kind of illuminate because some of the female students, for instance, don't contribute in class. And when you ask them, why don't you speak in class? And they say, because the English language is offered as a course in first year, and it is not adequate. You need longer periods of time to be able to master the language. And so they don't speak in class. It's not because they don't know, but they can't express themselves. You need a medium of communication, which is English language, to be able to be articulate, to be able to understand. So it's really, really a big challenge. My earlier article on formative stages of common law in South Sudan, I actually cited Rwanda, the way Rwanda managed the transition from French to English. It needs some time. It needs some time to phase out the Arabic. You just don't, at a click of a finger, introduce, a new language. And to be honest with you, the students are really struggling. I can completely understand it, to the extent that when we are marking the scripts, we have to waive. When I was in the other universities, English language is very important. It has to be well structured. It has to be very proficient and flowy. But in this regard, we find ourselves as academics, just like closing your eyes, and just marking the principles, the case citations, and just completely ignoring the not so good English. So it's a big problem. It is indeed a big problem, Dora.
Are there any courses being offered to students, at least to make them be able to cope up with that?
Yes, from my research and also from being in the College of Law and the Institute for Peace, yes, in first year, the first semester and the second semester, they have English language, courses that are tailored to assist the entering, the new students, the first year students to cope. But then you have to know that English is one of the most difficult languages. And according to my research, the students said that, 2 semesters and that's it. It's not enough. Yes, it is something. I mean, compared to nothing, it is something to give them the beginner English courses so that they can cope. But my interviews with them indicated to me that it's helpful to some, but to some who are completely in the Arabic pattern systems, they still do struggle, especially in the College of Law, where your English, without legal English, you cannot perform in the law class. You just cannot. Everything is, if you're interpreting the sections of the law, there's a very A might be similar to B, might be similar to C, might be similar to D, but there's such a variance that you have to have a higher English competence level to be able to know, I'm not going to discuss A, B, but this issue is about D. So it's really, and I, even in my recommendation, I say maybe they need to have the courses as more regularly and at more regular intervals throughout, their studies, so that they can basically just even cope. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kuyang. That's it's a big challenge. We stand together as a country on, and I think to be able to give a good quality education, then the students have to at least be able to master the language, to be able to understand what is being taught and be able to use the skills that they have. Professor Julia, do you have just 1 minute? Do you want to say something in regards to that?
Yes, Dora. I think most of the things have been said by Kuyang and Josephine, the challenges that are facing. But what I really wanted to say, what is the role of the universities really in our country? I look at few things, is to invest in people, invest in students. When you invest, you put more money in infrastructure, in library. This, academic lecturers who are qualified. These are the three things that make a university a university. Without infrastructure, where do you really hold classes? Where do the students sleep? Like what the Kuyang was saying, when she came to the United States, she find that it's a different story altogether. So these are the three pillars of the university: infrastructure, library, and then the qualified teachers, teaching staff. The other thing is what is it that the university can do? The role of the university is actually research and teaching. If we can teach and our universities are not doing research, then we are not even fulfilling the knowledge production we are supposed to do. And that's where the challenge is at those universities. You don't have a library, you don't have enough infrastructure to do research. You just only do teaching, and even teaching is not fulfilled because the environment is lacking those equipments that you can be able to provide that learning. So this role, if the universities don't fulfill that research and teaching and providing the environment that is conducive to provide that knowledge, then still we are not fulfilling the role of the universities. The other thing is that if you produce knowledge and you disseminate it, do you really change the individuals? Part of the university is really to change these young people from who they are to become really to find inner and their abilities to contribute to their nation. Are we doing that? And it comes out very clearly, if you are not developing a student very well, they're struggling with the language issues, or they are not finding, comfortable at the university so that they can be able to study well, we are not fulfilling that role. So there is a real challenge there. So how do we really fulfill that role of the university? And the other thing is, education for democratic society, is part of which the university play. You really develop individual capability so that they can think freely and be able to provide that idea so that other people can benefit from it. Are we providing that thing within the university? This is also a challenge. Listening to both Kuyang and Josephine, we are not doing that one. So it is still a challenge at our universities. And when I was at John Garang, one of the policies we came out as a university is that when we saw that our students were struggling, because there are three levels of students that come to the university. You have students who are coming from the northern, Sudan or Sudan system of Arabic language. Then you have a flock of students coming from East Africa with the English background. So you have this mixture of students. And one of the things we did is that how do we bring all the students at one level in terms of language of instruction? And one of the things is that we introduce what we call English communication, classes. You start at first year, we give them 2 semesters of regular, intensive English classes. and then they continue with the English communication to their colleges with this, with the knowledge of their areas of studies. Like if you are studying law, there is an English class in law, so that you learn the terminologies and you learn, the words that are used in class, so that the student can become familiar with what they are studying. And it really helps our student a lot. Once they have finished that in English intensive, and then they go into English communication, now it is based on their areas of studies. So and most of our students really who came from the Arabic pattern pick it up very quickly, because it is the same words in Arabic, and then they just translate it in English, and they were able to pick it up very quickly. So if that one can be really adapted at the universities, then we will be able to help the students, to be able to cope well, especially the student in the South Sudan who are still in Arabic pattern, and those students who are coming from Northern Sudan with the Arabic background. In terms of lecturers, it is really a challenge, and I think Young has really put it out very clearly. As a lecturer, and these days you might have libraries, and I understand Juba University Library. I went in very recently, and I still saw those books that I saw in the 80s when I was in Juba University. They're still there hanging in that in that library. Knowledge change, the new terminologies come up, and everything, it's not, it's good to know those old books, but it has evolved. That knowledge has evolved to a new thing altogether. So it is a challenge for lecturers to be able to find those materials, those, modern research and new research that has come out, so that they can be able to equip themselves and be able to deliver those knowledge in their classes. So it is a challenge. At John Graham, we do have a very good library. We do have about 30,000 books. Most of them, ranging from, and that is a really big library. If you have 30,000 books, over 30,000 books, that is a really big library. But we didn't have the infrastructure, to put up those books. Some of them were still in the boxes. Students have to dig them out in the boxes, so that we try our best to put them up, but the space was small for us to be able to provide those. So there is, so many things, that are facing the university, so that they can play their role effectively and be able to provide that to our country. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Julia. You've said a lot of very important things, and the three pillars: infrastructure, the library, and investing on the lecturers. It's so important. And I think it also has to start from the early secondary, so that when they get into university, at least we have those things in place. So thank you so much. Evelyn is on now. I think we'll move on to you, Evelyn. Sorry, we didn't continue with the question that you started answering. But if you could just briefly, again, in regards to the quality of education, language barriers, students get into universities maybe that are not having very good qualities, and there have been some allegations going on for years that most South Sudanese purchase academic degrees, for example, from Uganda, without going through the requirement. How true is that, and has your university ever come across this issue, and how do you handle such cases?
Thank you, Dora. Sorry that my network got challenges a bit. I will say forging of certificates is not only an East African problem, a Ugandan problem, a Sudanese problem, but I think it's worldwide. We have had this coming across in different areas of people wanting to go to other levels without actually meeting the basic criteria. In Uganda, we've had these challenges. I've had these challenges as well, not only with Sudanese, but across the board. Now, it's true that people go, there are people who are now specialized in just doing that. You pay them money, you get your certificate, and you're good to go. But we've had systems in place. At my university, for example, we now, for all foreign students, you must be verified by your embassy. The student goes to the embassy looks through the documents, and the student comes with a written letter to say, please admit so and so. He or she has met the basic requirements from their country of origin. Because the challenges are that the East African system is different. When you go to South Sudan, it's different. When you go to Burundi, to Kenya, to Rwanda, so most people do not understand those differences. And therefore, when the students come in, they are faced with a lot of challenges. I've had students who drop halfway. I had one of the army officers in South Sudan who only did 1 year. And then the next thing, the ministry is writing to me and saying, Evelyn, can you confirm that so-and-so graduated? And I was clear, I said, no, they did not actually finish the program. So what we are doing now is we work with the various verification departments, because in the country we have agencies that verify documents. I've seen in the US, in the UK, I've had in the Middle East as well, where they first write to me and say, can you confirm that so-and-so actually graduated? Then you have to look through the records and send. But one of the challenges that we have is that as the registrar, I know my security features on the document. But when the student forges this document, he or she is not coming back to me. He is going to go to another university, or he will, let me give an example. Someone goes to South Sudan, and when you see the certificate, for you, you know, oh, this is from Uganda, it is from Clark International University. But you do not follow who the signatories are. So in most cases, what we do is we share a document with the embassies to give you who are the signatories for these documents, the titles and everything. So those help us to curb. But right now I can say that it has been a big challenge, but we are managing it as universities. We share documents, we share the signatories for a given faculty, and we work with the verification agencies. The embassies are doing a good job now because they have to send me the students themselves. Because I had a meeting with the South Sudan embassy, and they had a whole pack of documents that had been forged for different universities. So now we go through that and we try our best to see that that challenge is curbed. So what I do is I encourage universities that get in touch with another university. When someone comes to you, don't take it as a gospel truth. Because apart from universities now, we are having documents from the secondary level. Because someone wants to join university, they did not qualify, and they want to study. What do you do? Yes, I can get the pack of the A-level results in Uganda, but I cannot get it from South Sudan. I cannot get it from Kenya or Tanzania. So sometimes you have to go an extra mile, because you can look at the grades and look at the years and say, what do we do? You contact, but those are minimally done. In universities now, we are focusing on checking among universities, but the forgeries are now going to the lower level. With all the schools in place, sometimes it's difficult even for you to know whether this school, does that school exist in this country? Do I know the number of secondary schools in South Sudan? I have no clue. So those are the challenges that we face, but we are working as a team and we are curbing it at university level. But I think now the challenge is we have to go down to the lower level. If I have not passed primary 7, if I have gone for a diploma course, there are some courses which are 1 year, and someone says, oh, I can now go to university, or people are making money. There are very many small schools around the country or in the neighboring countries that are trying to make money. So we train students for 1 year, for 6 months, and we tell them after this qualification, you can go to university. Then when they come, they are stuck with us because we cannot people, but it's actually a challenge that needs to be dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making us understand about this issue. And it's important, as you put it, that there are rules and regulations that look into it. And it is a challenge that we have to face together as a nation. And again, in regards to the quality of education, so students don't need to buy certificates if things are in place. We are running out of time. Just briefly before we go on to your concluding remarks, I'll just ask Adeng very briefly about the in regards to scholarship, if the African Union give scholarships, or if there are any special quotas that are allocated for women, and how do you determine which country should get the scholarship? Just briefly, please.
Yeah, just briefly, I would like to say that there is no specific quotas for women, but because the AU Agenda 2063 is emphasizing on the point that 50-50 in both gender. So I would like to mention the three specific and very famous scholarship. There is a Chinese government African Union scholarship for African students, and it does not discriminate any country, and based on your application and based on your qualification and working experience, you can be selected for this scholarship. And it is in China, and usually they give the scholarship for youth, mostly for youth, because they're emphasizing on empowering youth and also encouraging the youth to pursue their education. This is for master's education. And there is another one called Mualimo, Nyerere African Union Scholarship. It's announced every year, and this one is specifically registered. This is specifically for registered refugees and displaced person with UNHCR. So it is also every year, and it is for master's degree as well. So they announce it like almost every year. And then there is a current one which is ongoing. Is a full scholarship to everybody in Africa, an African citizen, and it's called it is for Pan-African. It's for the Pan-African University. It is also offered by African Union, masters and PhD, and it has a limited age as well, which is 35 for female applicant and 30 for male. And then it is in the sector of water and energy sciences, basic science, technology, and innovation, which is in Kenya, and then water and energy sciences, which is in Algeria, and then there's in Nigeria life and earth sciences, and governance, humanities, and social sciences. So there's different sectors in these 5 nations: Algeria, Kenya, Nigeria, Cameroon, and South Africa. Kindly go to the website, Pan-African University, and you will find it. It is running up to 10 September. So this thing does not discriminate any country. You apply as an African nation, an African from the African nations from the 55 nations, and make sure that you apply based on the criteria requested, and make sure that many people know about it. And this is the current scholarship that is African Union is providing. But also there's other scholarships that are provided by different institutions that you can access it from different opportunities website, or even Opportunities for South Sudanese initiative that I run it in Facebook. So there's different scholarships as well. So this is briefly what I can say.
Thank you so much, Adeng. It's good to know about the scholarship because the students get the chance to travel abroad, to learn, to collaborate with other universities, because international cooperation between local universities and international universities is very important and beneficial to us all, from the staff to the students in the university. And in the process of doing that, knowledge and expertise is exchanged. Students get access to high quality education and research opportunities. As Professor Julia said, research is very important. And these research opportunities they get might not be available in the local universities that we have in the region. So to form strong and strategic education and research cooperation between universities, we should have a committed involvement of the university, the government, and everyone involved. Like Adeng has just highlighted the possibilities there. I hope everyone will go on and look at them and maybe apply for them. So we are running out of time, or we have already run out of time. So I'll give you each a minute to say your concluding remarks. I'll start with you, Professor Julia. And recommendations, concluding remarks and recommendations, please.
Thank you, Dora. What can we do? Is really to address the challenges that we are facing at the higher education. One, improve infrastructure in the country so that we can be able to provide those services to the universities. Also, the university environment has changed. Education in earlier time was free. People can go to the college and you can, the government pay for it. Now it's time for us, to open university a market system where your student can be able to pay, so that universities can have resources to be able to be run. So second, student population is increasing, and that need to be addressed in our country. As we produce all these secondary schools, and then the graduates, now they are hungry for knowledge to go to the universities. We need to think how, as a country, where do we put all this student population? Because now, even the admission is behind in the country, because the year entered into another year without admitting the students. So that needs to be addressed. The other thing that need to be addressed is the leadership at the universities. Universities have become polarized. It has become a center of politics, and the leaderships are big. They look towards politicians to be able to be a leader, to be a vice chancellor. You have to lobby for it to become a vice chancellor. That need to be changed. It goes back to the university system where they elect their own leader. So polarization of leadership at the university need to be addressed. And I think Young will agree with me on that one. Some of my colleagues will not agree with me, but I do feel we need to go back so that the universities, the lecturers can be able to elect their own leaders. Universities, need to, universities, they specialize in the areas, like the, area of law, area of medicine, area of social sciences, all these things. These are cultures, they are cultures, and they are ingrained into students. And that is, we lack that one at the university, where we should need to establish societies, law societies at the student level. I do agree that we have a student union, but the student union has been misused at our universities. It has become a center of politics. So I would rather go for societies, student group under society, English society, geography society, historian, things like that, so that they can focus on what they are doing right now. Maybe later, when they understand their own fulfillment as individual and they are liberated and they become democratic society, then we can talk about the student union. And I think these days our students are polarized under student union. And the last thing I want to say is the capacity building for the lecturers. That one is one of the areas which has really been neglected by our government. I remember in 2016 they put together the Council for Research, National Council for Research, and that is to help the academicians to be able to do research and be able to provide that knowledge at the university. That council has not really taken up. And our lecturers are struggling, to develop themselves, to become researchers, so that they can be able to articulate, to be able to think, to be able to think freely and bring that knowledge to the university. That's where the universities are. Is a center for free thinkers. Is not for dictators. You are there to think. Even if what you think, other people think it is not viable, allow that person to think and share that knowledge with people, and you may be able to find some credibility in that area. We lack that one, and I think it's one of the big areas that need to be addressed at our universities. Research, teaching is okay. Now people are struggling doing it, but research is lacking. I just want to say a little thing about the certificates that are coming from East Africa, which Evelyn has talked about. It has really challenged South Sudan, and especially at the beginning, where when we came in 2005, 2006, 2007 and 8, most of the certificates that came to South Sudan were all forged certificates. And we find our civil society was flooded by all these fake certificates. Until 2009, when Madame Aoud was appointed as a Minister of Higher Education, Minister of Public Service, then we were able to form the recruitment board, which I became a chair. And one of the first things we did was to verify those certificates. So we went into the files of our civil servants and we looked into those files and we were able to contact the university and we find tons and tons of forged certificates. And this has really affected South Sudan so bad because people with no skills hold strategic position which they cannot be able to do and provide for the country. And I think this is where our Ugandan neighbor can come in really to help South Sudan out. If you want South Sudan to become a viable state, strong civil society, strong capacity of the citizen is very important. And we should not really take it very lightly to see that our country is run down by lack of skills and lack of knowledge. And I think I will stop from there as my time is going. And thank you very much for having me. Keep up the good work.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Julia. I'll move on to Evelyn. Please give us your concluding remarks and recommendations.
Thank you. I think personally, I would say we need to look at systems. For the education sector to prosper, we must look at the systems that we have and how does it help us to grow. I can say, for example, now with the recent pandemic, we've had to think out of the box. So I think as educationists, as people in the education sector, we need to see how can we still support and promote education in a way that the learners are not strained, but at the same time, we are training people that will make a difference in society. So that calls for governments, individuals, the universities, and each of us to be able to think out of the box. And thinking out of the box means we have to be more innovative, more creative in our way of thinking, in our way of doing things, so that then the next future that comes in, the future generation is able to cope. But again, to the people that we are dealing with and to the students, it's unfortunate that my network, and I was going to talk about the challenges that the South Sudanese face, especially in education in Uganda. We need to be more focused, and we need to encourage the people that we train, the people that we deal with every day, to be more focused and what word can I use? To be specific, what is it that we want to do in life? We the trainers, who do we want to train and what do we want to see? And I'm happy that we have people who have been there for long, like Professor, who can say, what is the new thing that we need to do? So for us to overcome the challenges that we are seeing right from the student level, we need to think, how best can we improve? How can we get out of these challenges? Because they are there to stay, especially after this pandemic. Now, there are new things that have come with, and we must be able to understand them well and say, this is what we'd like to do as individuals at different levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Thank you. These are important things that you have taken up. Yeah, thank you. I'll move further to Dr. Kuyang. Would you please give us your recommendations? And
first of all, this has been a wonderful, opportunity, a wonderful panel, and also to meet new friends. I think my recommendation is that education is treasure. Education is gold, and because of what it brings and what it contributes to our lives, especially the lives of women, it is a lot of hard work. And there are no shortcuts, just like Evelyn and the others have emphasized. There's no shortcuts. So it's a lot of hard work. Get to work, put in the hard work. education changes lives. Our identity as women should be much more than just mothers, wives, sisters, it should be about other things as well. So there's so much opportunities, with education. Find yourself peers. It's very difficult for academics and students. Find yourselves peers. Find yourselves role models. I remember when I met Professor Julia in Tanzania, I said, I'm going to latch myself onto Professor Julia. I'm going to tie myself on her wrapper. And that's exactly what I have done. It's not easy. It's very difficult. Even when you see those of us smiling and going about it as if it's easy, behind the scenes, we are crying, we are picking ourselves up, and we are going on. And I think women of South Sudan are the new face. They are the future of this country. They are the ones with the key to change this country, and the key lies in education. Thank you so much. I've had a wonderful time.
Thank you so much, Kuyang. And as you mentioned, despite the challenges that we have, we try to push on further. And Evelyn had wanted to just highlight a few challenges that South Sudanese students meet in Uganda. I think it's very important that we get to hear it before we leave this forum. So please, I'll get back to you, Evelyn. Would you just please highlight some of the challenges that you had wanted to bring up?
Thank you very much. Now, challenges that the South Sudanese students face when they're in Uganda. When I came to Uganda, I faced the same challenge. And that is basically the difference in education system. That makes it difficult for the students to comprehend what they are being taught, to be able to understand and grasp, because the system and the way of teaching is very, very different. When you come to Uganda, we are into details. In South Sudan, we summarize a lot, and that is one of the challenges that I've seen. Students are failing to cope with the lifestyle. Because one, I don't know whether it's a weakness or it's something that we live with, the fact that most of us are sponsored by other people out there, we seem not to understand what does it mean. When I come to a country, I need to be able to know why I have come and what do I want to go with. So in most cases, I've had students who come, they're so relaxed and they're not bothered. But with time, we put them down and say, guys, this is what it is. If you want to go back to the country and make a difference, I'm happy that Kuyang talks about the woman. I've gone as far as telling the students that, especially the female students, focus and know that you need to make a difference in society. It is not good for you to come and get swallowed with the lifestyle. Students face the high cost of living. That when you are a foreign student, your cost of living are very high in a foreign country. So I find that when the South Sudanese students come to Uganda, for example, one, the fact that they are South Sudanese, already a number of things change. That the landlord is going to increase the rent, because then this is the South Sudanese who has money. Because in the past, we flashed our money everywhere, and people still believe that in South Sudan, we have a lot of money to play around with. So I find that the cost of living goes high. The students are also trying to manage, but again, the fees, because I charge you as an international student, you have to pay me in dollars. Now, for South Sudanese coming to Uganda right now, we all know that getting the dollar is a problem. So the students are facing that. The students face challenges of being fleeced by people. When I talk about certificates, someone telling them, why do you focus? Why are you going to that school? I can make for your certificate quickly. And we have streets that are really focusing on that. So I find that the students have those challenges, the high cost of living, the economy is challenging to them. And sometimes we stick to our cocoons. I'm a South Sudanese, I'll look around for my fellow South Sudanese and stick to them. And that therefore hinders them from actually learning and being able to cope. Forgetting, like I keep using the word getting out of the box, because then when you are only with the people that you're used to, the kind of lifestyle, the kind of conceptualization, you find that it's very, very difficult for them to get out. So I always encourage them to say, get out of the box, socialize and interact with other students and be able to learn. Because
education, the demand of education in Uganda is very difficult for you to pass, because the focus is on facts. The focus is on what have you learned. So this has at times been a challenge, but like I always say, that one by one we get there. And I'm sure that now there are a few changes and we still focus on them. And my only advice is, when you come to a place, understand the place, learn what is best, and be able to consult. Sometimes the students don't consult. So right now I work with the embassy directly to get students on board, to support them from the beginning, that we can have, how do we orient them, how do we get them to get into the system and manage. But we still need to be able to know that the basics in life are not easy, but we can manage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva, and that was a very important points to have with before we finish. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I'll move on to Josephine. You have mentioned already many challenges that you face as a student at the university. Do you have any recommendations to what can be done to improve the situations you're living in?
Yes, as you can see, the challenges that facing our students, I think we are lagging behind in terms of quality educations because of those following challenges. Only my recommendation is that, like most of our universities in South Sudan do not have library. Typical here is current University of Upper Nile. As I'm talking now, I wish if the VC can make a library to that university, that will encourage the student even to participate more, especially ladies who I think it is very expensive for them to get internet outside. They will just focus on library in order for them to get some informations. Also, some universities, those who have library, but there is no enough books. Also, the few books they are getting is all editions books. For example, like University of Juba, I wish if the government cooperate with them, provide the books, then it will be better for them. Also, another issue, lack of lecturers. There is few lecturers in the university who are always overloading with a lot of courses, and this is because they are payless. This another challenges that facing mostly students. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Josephine. I'll move on further to Adeng, the last panelist. Please give us your recommendations and final remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dora. And thank you, South Sudan Women Intellectual, for giving me the chance and the platform. I would like to also quote lastly, education makes the people easy to lead, but difficult to drive, easy to govern, but impossible to enslave. My recommendation and concluding remark is that South Sudan, as the South Sudanese, we should learn to question our rights. As in the African Union, so many people will come and ask me, where is your people? Your people are not represented. Your people are not anywhere to be seen. So I would like to say that make sure you have access to all the information through social media, through the websites, through everything, and apply for different scholarship, different trainings, different kind of, the summits or anything that you can find that can be interesting to you. And then let represent South Sudan as the South Sudan that I know, because see, we are here as a panelist and there's so many in intellectual mind, and also women who are empowered and young people who are strong, but nobody knows about it just because we are not represented very well, fully at the African Union. So I would like to say that when, for example, our minister go to the African Union meeting, when they come back, let's ask them, what did you bring from there, or what have you learned from there, or what is it for us in the nation here? So I just want to say that there is so many opportunities for us in the African Union, and I myself, I tried to share many opportunities that people should know that it is in the African Union. Like, for example, there's a program running, the deadline is tomorrow, is called African Union Youth Volunteer Corps. That made me enter the African Union. I entered as a volunteer, and that's how I was able to get a job. So many people didn't know that. But now, since I'm there, I will tell people how to apply for that. And then the embassies, the ministries should show people what is there for the South Sudanese citizen. And then I would say that education here is a key. And also, if you can have a chance to further your education, I was thinking that, oh, bachelor degree is the last, and I'm not going ahead. But when I went outside there, and I was like, oh my God, I have to do something. I have to learn. I have to learn. Education is a continuous effort, things that we should continually do. So if you get a chance to further education, further it. If you get a chance to fund somebody else to further their education, help them. If you get a chance to teach somebody how they can get access to their scholarship, please teach them. And that's the only recommendation I would say. I can say this is also an advice from a sister, and I will be there also to support my sisters who are trying to understand about how to access different opportunities. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adeng. I think from the recommendations, there are a lot of very good ones. I'll pick up some. Leadership was mentioned, very important. Capacity building, having libraries in place at the school, systems in place to be able to run the universities. And the last one, as you mentioned, representation, that we should be represented where we are, and we have to ask for our rights. So thank you so much for tuning in all. I just want to close up with a quote from Nelson Mandela, that education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. The power of education extends beyond the development of skills we need to for economic success. It can contribute to nation building and reconciliation. I hope today's discussion has been fruitful to you all. So thanks to our phenomenal panelists with all your insights and recommendations. And thank you also to Aisha, who has helped us with the technical and the contacts and everything. Thank you so much. And thanks to the UN Women South Sudan for helping our panelists down there to be able to access the internet and the technicals. And thank you all, the audience, for tuning in, for your questions that we'll be able to answer a bit later, so we can take them all, and for your comments. And I hope we leave this forum and challenge ourselves that we all can contribute wherever we are. It's a challenge to us all to use our various education to empower others. And something that hasn't been mentioned here is like mentorship. I think if we out there who are watching, if any one of you can mentor some of the students, to be a mentor, to help them through the learning process, that will take them more further than where they are now. So it's a challenge for us all to empower each other, to empower the students, and bring the change that we all need to see in South Sudan. So thank you so much for tuning in, and have a blessed day. Thank you.